This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day, carefully crafted for you by humans. So meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Okay, guys, what is your opinion on standing desks for productivity? Cancel or keep them?
Keep. I'm gonna go with cancel.
Okay, next one. Counting macros instead of intuitive eating. Canceling or keep them?
Oh,
Canceling
intuitive.
that. No.
Yeah, intuitive.
We're
eating.
eating what we're getting. We're getting whatever we want here. However many cookies, all of that. No macro.
No.
I love that. Okay, next one. Prescription weight loss drugs like Ozempic. Cancel or keep?
Cancel for sure.
And the last one. Meditation apps instead of therapy. Cancel or keep?
Ooh.
Depends for who.
And how much you're willing to spend as well.
Yes, I would say keep just because it does work for some people.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'd say like a combination of both might be great.
Yeah.
Guys, welcome to the Fully Minutes podcast. You all know the drill. For people watching, this is where we talk marketing and business tips. We assist you guys in your business journeys. And you know me, I'm the host. And we have two great guests today. We have Leilani and Charly. How are you guys doing today, guys?
Doing great. The sun's shining over here. How are you?
I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. Where are you guys located?
I am based over in Minnesota. We just had a epic snowstorm yesterday. It really kicked off the first day of Earth Month strong. Yeah, calling in from the Midwest.
Okay.
And I'm from San Diego. Oh, sorry. I'm from San Diego, so quite like the opposite side of the spectrum weather-wise. It's blue skies right now, but we did have a lot of rain last week. So, what about you?
I am so Penji is based in Philadelphia, but I live in El Salvador. So very far.
That's so cool. I love that. I've been
So
wanting to get over there.
we're all located in different places, but I am excited to have you guys on the podcast today. And talk about great things. So to get started, get the ball rolling, can you guys introduce yourselves a little bit? Tell us all we gotta know, the whole shebang.
Perfect. Charly, I'll let you lead.
Okay. Hello, my name is Charly. I am originally from Colorado, grew up spending my whole life in the middle of the Rocky Mountains, so fostered a really deep appreciation for nature early on. I always knew that I wanted to do something in the environmental movement, but I was not super sold on the idea of climate change. I had a community that was also pretty skeptical about climate science and wasn't really sure that the climate was changing until college, where I had a really amazing professor who showed me all of this climate data. But what really got to me was the climate stories, people that were experiencing climate change on the front line. So ever since then, I have devoted my life to climate communication and started working at Time for Better, where I met the phenomenal Leilani like 3.5 years ago. So kick it off to you.
Yeah, thank you, Charly. I'm Leilani. I'm originally from San Diego, California, born and raised here. I went to school in Utah, so no, I studied public relations and got my bachelor's there. I moved around a bunch and now I'm back home, which is amazing. But I live and breathe all things digital media, short form video. My way into the climate space was a little bit different. Like I was always into social justice. I, was a part of a club in college and helped like pioneer a group to go to the Grand Canyon to pick up trash around it. And that kind of like opened my eyes to everything going on. But then I've just been doing social media management and went to Climate Week where I met Charlie as well. And it's an amazing space to be in the climate space, and it's a very like needed space for communication and digital media. So yeah, I'm super excited to be here.
Amazing. I love when people have motivations that are, like so important, like the environment. Because I think we tend to be people that can get very hyper focused on business growth and things like that, or career. And that's great. Obviously, I totally support career growth, but I do think that it's always great to kind of tap into how we can actually provide help for the world and for the people around us. And it's one of the topics that I wanted to ask you guys about today because we talked about talking about micro communities and how that is really huge for social media engagement, but also for movements that you are trying to push. And I wanted to ask you guys about it. My first question actually is, what do you guys think are the advantages of a micro community or building a micro community over like, versus like a large, big audience?
That's a great question.
Yeah, I love that. I would say, like, especially in climate work and any social justice movement, grassroots is everything. That's something I've like learned very first in my poli sci class. But the power of every single voice, it doesn't have to be a big voice. And I think what we're finding in social media, like people aren't really listening to like Kylie Jenner anymore on social media. Like she's not converting. People are wanting to hear from like real people. And those smaller creators are actually the ones who are getting the voice out a lot more and everything. So I'll let Charlie speak to this, but she was a big part of creating, the community in Time for Better and all the activists and small creators. But we led a campaign with a woman leading on climate campaign where we had DM'd almost every single person that we knew in the climate community, and it helped propel the campaign to go viral and get over 41 million impressions. But it wouldn't have happened without our relationships with those people. And I'll let Charlie speak to that a little bit more, but those voices are small and mighty, they're everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that starting out with your smaller micro community is how you can start building a broader movement. Like Leilani said, it's all in the relationship thing. And that's how you build those authentic relationships and communities. And Time for Better has been building those since the beginning. Those are the people that we let in on the campaign, that we share information about different environmental movement building efforts. And then when you have this influx moment where you're ready to launch a bigger campaign, those are your supporters, and how you'll go from like reaching thousands to reaching millions. So investing in those communities is really critical.
I think a question that I think is really big for me is that I think with any kind of social justice movement, it can feel very daunting as a normal person to approach the topic because you feel a lot of impotence. I think in today's youth, we also see very much a lot of apathy. I think of towards a lot of these things of like, like the world is ruined. I don't want to do anything. I just want to die. I feel like I see that sentiment being thrown around a lot, and being able to reach kind of just the smallest communities probably feels a lot more important. Um, how have you guys felt like social media and all of these things have played into all of these different things that have changed?
Yeah. I think that I'm curious what Leilani's opinion on this is, but I think her first, like, a foray into environmental and social justice activism that I saw on Instagram when I was in college, and the murder of George Floyd happened in Minneapolis, and Leah Thomas had posted about how environmentalism is intersectional, and that graphic went super viral. And I think that um, there was definitely social media activism on the environment happening before then, but not so much across these different intersectional lines of racial justice and LGBTQIA justice and all these different wonderful intersections. And I think that social media is really beautiful in this way because you can connect with somebody that's completely across the world from you and you can still understand what they're feeling and experiencing. You can see the world from their point of view in a way that you're not really able to just like within your physical community. So I think that that really opened up the door to a lot of digital activism in that way. But I'm curious what Leilani thinks.
Yeah, I love that. I think the personal storytelling is a huge part of the environmental movement and people talking about what's happening in their own back doors. Definitely like education is a huge part of it. I got a lot. I get most of my climate education from social media. I get most of, if not all my education now, from social media. I'm done with school, but I like to say that I'm a constant learner. I never want to stop learning. And there's the pros and cons of getting all your education on social media. There's a lot of like false information out there, but I think that it's really helping bring awareness to what's going on and people can share and amplify. And I think most people are good and they're trying to get the word out. And yeah, most people are trying. And I think, having it digestible, as we said, as you were mentioning at the beginning, that it's really hard to, have climate digestible. It's a really scary subject. It's a really multifaceted subject. And Charlie and I actually talked about this when we first met. I'm like, I'm just like a baby activist. Like, where do I start? This is so confusing. I know plastic is bad. And I know I should probably try to compost and recycle, but like, you see what's happening, but you don't know what to do. And I think social media can kind of bring those action steps into it.
Yeah. I think it's like, I know that I probably shouldn't shop on Shein, but I also don't have money for something more expensive. I
That's
could
fair, right?
like, I think that's where the conversation is always just so complicated, and I think, actionable items are always important to bring in, and I definitely think that with social media, we've made the conversation a lot more digestible. Because I think back to when I was in, like, school and we were learning about things like this on textbooks and, in classrooms, and it can get kind of boring and make you uninterested, versus I think all of the ways that we have to show people, whether it's through a YouTube video and articles and all of these different, avenues, can make it more engaging and a lot more relatable, especially for young kids who are just getting introduced to this whole thing, right?
And less
Yeah.
depressing too. Like,
Yeah.
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 I feel like
Go ahead, go ahead.
media have made thrifting cool again. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
people are, finding new ways that are exciting.
Yeah, and I think with, like social media, there is a kind of a fine line that you do have to thread though, because I do think we find a lot of great content, great creators, great things on social media, but there's also a lot of noise and a lot of things that can feel, a lot of data that is presented in certain ways to fit narratives, a lot of just false things, a lot of manipulated stuff. What do you guys recommend when it comes to activism and social justice that people can do to actually not fall into these traps or, get misinformed or make something and then have it not give the impact that you were hoping it to give?
I'll let Charlie lead this way 'cause she's a pro on this topic.
I feel like that is, like, I wish that I had somebody kind of talking to me about misinformation, particularly in climate when I was younger, and I'm glad that I had gotten that education in college, and yeah, like I said, like, learning about the data is so important. There's, like, limitless resources for how you can learn about issues now and fact check, make sure that you're, getting from trusted news sources. If you see a weird headline, checking it on a fact checker like Snopes or something like that. Know your news sources, know your reporters, but also it's like finding out who you can trust this information from is a whole big deal too. We talk about how micro communities are really great, but then micro communities can be sometimes harmful because you are just kind of stuck in a little bit of a bubble. So I think finding ways to step outside of that is really important. Talking to people across the aisle is also really important, not only to like sharpen your arguments, but to get a different perspective, whether that aligns with you or not. But I think that that would be my recommendation. And then, as always, looking at like the leaders of climate information, climate opinion information. Yale program on climate change is a really great resource. But yeah, I'm curious about what Leilani thinks.
Yeah, that was a super, super great touch base on that. And Charlie is an amazing like brain for like information and resources to go to as well, like websites. But I think the main thing, as she mentioned, is just making sure you're following credible people from the start. Make sure you're not just like, make sure you have like start with like 5 really credible voices and then move into it and then just like use your brain, like everything, question everything, and make sure that you're just just because you see it on the internet doesn't mean it's true. I think a lot of people think they're experts these days when they're not, and we see that on social media, and it's hard to digest. But like a simple Google search or just always, have a thoughtful academic perspective, and yeah, just always give it a little double check, I think, before you, especially before you share it. It's,
Yeah,
your responsibility before you share it to all your followers and your community. Make sure you fact check it yourself before you share it so it doesn't become like this wildfire of misinformation.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure. I think that's like one of the biggest issues with social media nowadays. When it comes to actual content creation, I think making content, like easy, digestible. I think short form is huge right now. And you're kind of focused on trying to condense as much information into short videos. Um, and with such a heavy topic like climate change that is so complex and there's so many factors that go into something as simple as like throwing trash into the ground, right? Like there's cultural education, environmental, structural issues. What do you guys think are ways that you can communicate these type of complex ideas into like tangible and understandable things on social media or on, anywhere so that people can actually consume them and understand what's going on?
Yeah, I think an approach which our founder and CEO says very well is nobody knows what you're talking about. So, like, we remind our clients that it's just like before you post anything, just remember, like, nobody knows what you're talking about. Like, you might be in your head and you like have studied all this and you're an expert, but when you put it out, you can be the smartest person in the world, but if it's not communicated and digestible, people won't understand it. And so I think to your question is just making sure it's easy and digestible and taking an approach that someone's hearing this for the first time, like starting with digestible bits is really helpful. And as you said, short form video is really, really huge right now. So, making it in a fun little trendy video and then maybe expanding more in the caption, not putting all the words up front. So if someone's interested, they can go and read more. But Charlie is an amazing communicator as well. So I'll let her answer this as well.
yes, yeah. No, I totally agree. And we were just talking about this before the podcast, but all of these amazing organizations and companies are taking amazing initiatives on climate work. But if you don't know how to communicate it to your audience, they're not going to know how to rally behind you or become your base. So figuring out how you're going to talk to them in a way that they feel that it resonates is super important. And I was also going to bring up, yeah, our CEO and founder, Sarah Quit. A lot of the work that she does with climate communication comes through a hopeful and optimistic lens. And that is one of the research backed strategies to get people to take action on environmental and climate initiatives is to give them a sense of hope. We all know that headlines are not the best way to take care of your mental health and well-being. And if you can give somebody, a lifeline to make sure that they have a good day or they are knowing what they can do or they are inspired to take action, that's a wonderful way to communicate with your audience, especially with such a heavy topic.
What do you guys think about virality? I think I've seen a lot of business owners trying to strive for that, like for viral content. I think a lot of people have seen the success of brands like Duolingo on social media, especially like on like they had a really big boom on TikTok, and I guess it really has helped their brand grow. And I've seen a lot of people kind of trying to replicate that and make that kind of quirky, relatable content to grow their brands. And especially, I think when it goes to a topic like environmental change or any kind of activism thing, I don't know if that model is, I mean, if it works, because you're also tackling something that's a little bit heavier and you want to kind of create social conscious, not necessarily a meme or a viral video. Um, but I'm curious to hear what your guys' take is on this topic, because my instinct tells me you probably want to have a different approach to your socials when you have when you're working with something like this, being with like nonprofits. But I'm curious what you guys think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that with viral campaigns, using memes and funny sorts of videos are perfect, and I would say that that's even necessary in the climate movement as well. Maybe that we need some more of that as well, but I think it always depends on who your audience is and how you're trying to communicate with them. So if you don't think that they're gonna resonate with some kind of Duolingo-esque kind of meme, then probably think through your strategy a little bit. But one campaign that Leilani and I worked on last year, which I think definitely was my favorite campaign that I have ever done, but it was in partnership with the former Minister of the Environment for Canada, and she had a goal to make a viral campaign moment, talking about women leading on climate, demanding action for their government to act on climate during the Conference of the Parties, COP29 in Azerbaijan. And so we made this huge campaign, and we connected first with our micro community, which are these really amazing environmental and climate communicators, really invested in them to make some great content pieces. And because they were really connected with their audience as well, they inspired their audience to create their own stories about how they are also women leading on climate. So we kind of tapped into women source of inspiration and also challenged different women to, lift each other up. But it was a really successful campaign. And yeah, I would love to hear Leilani's experience working on that as well.
Yeah, that was great. I think the Woman Leading on Climate campaign is a perfect example, especially trusting, your partners and influencers that you work with and not having like a robotic message and, having that trust in them and saying, this is kind of like the guidelines, but what works best for you and your audience, we want you to make it so your audience understands it and every influencer knows their audience. And so I think that's relayed very well is when they can be themselves and it's not just like a set thing. And I think, to your question about viral stuff, I think at the end of the day, making things relatable is the key message there. And everyone, will feel the need to act more if they can relate to it.
Yeah, I think so. I also think influencers right now are some of the biggest voices. I think even bigger than celebrities. I genuinely feel like sometimes, um, especially younger generations, are listening more to what an influencer has to recommend, what they have to say, than like you said earlier. Leilani, you said no one's listening to Kylie Jenner anymore. That's true, but they are listening to the influencer. So. Making sure that their voice is being heard and that they're saying things that are worthwhile, I think right now is huge. Um, Also, I think it brings up a great topic regarding, like just in general partnerships and working with other people. I think when you have this type of work, sort of that aspect of networking and finding strategic partnerships is really important. What do you guys think is important when you're determining someone that you want to work with that is going to be aligned with the goals that you have in mind, especially when it comes to social justice?
I think in person, like networking is huge. I think, having that touch base of what's going on in the community is really everything when it comes to social and influencers. It's really being in touch with the communities and what's going on. It's really, really big. But I think to your question is just seeing the passion from them. I think when I meet people in person and you can feel the passion, it's unlike anything else that you can feel online. So I think for me, like meeting people in real life or even on video, you can really feel out the energy and not to make it about that big part of it as well as like feeling someone's passion. But I'd love to hear Charlie's thoughts as well.
Yeah, no, huge. And I think um, this work is so heavy. And yeah, as an individual, you can feel really crushed by the amount of work that needs to get done. And when you have a partner, somebody that you're working with, that you can build off each other's energies. And yeah, I've had the privilege of working with Leilani and Sierra at Time for Better. And they're really incredible women. And I think that that is where the strength of the climate movement comes from, is in these partnerships, and also making partnerships with like unlikely allies as well. Something that we started 2 years ago was partnering up with nuclear energy, which is definitely a more controversial source of energy, or I think it was a controversial source of energy, but I think it's kind of building in acceptance more and more now. But we partnered with amazing nuclear energy advocacy groups who wanted to talk to climate communicators and influencers about how it's a climate solution. And we were able to put them in a room together and discuss how they can partner and talk. So finding those unlikely partners, in addition to finding your crew, I think is so important.
That's great. I think like nuclear energy has been controversial because there's like a negative connotation, but it's really great. And I think if you're able to sort of like learn a little bit more about it, people would be a little bit less uh, wary of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, guys, I think that's a great note to end this podcast on. But before I end it, I do want to give you guys the space to plug anything. If you guys want to work with anyone, if anything that we spoke about resonated with our audience today, the floor is yours to say anything that you want to say.
I love that. Well, we're both here at Time for Better, which is a hopeful climate communications agency. We don't solely work with climate agencies as well. We work with, anyone who needs help with their communications, but we do really focus on those climate-based brands. And if you need help with your communications or bringing a little bit more optimism to your messaging, that's what we like to do, as Charlie mentioned. Optimism converts better, it does best, and everyone needs more optimism. So if you need any help with that, we're around, and follow us on Instagram. Yeah, follow us on Instagram for updates and hopeful messaging and all the things.
I will be adding the links to all of this on the description so that people can easily click it, and go follow you guys. It was so great to have you on the podcast, girls. Thank you so much for being here.
Amazing.
Thank you so much for having us.
Guys, I will see you on the next episode. Subscribe, like, the whole shebang. Do us that favor. And thank you so much, Leilani. Thank you so much, Charlie, for being here.
Yes, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest, and to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend, and of course, subscribe.